A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Pick and Pay. Thank you for joining us wherever you are around the wine drinking world. Welcome to another week of sampling some fabulous, fabulous wine. It's a really exciting way to kick off the week, and one in which we make reparations for last week. If you were with us on Thursday last week, you'll remember that we had been hoping to get a top-class sommelier from Stellenbosch onto the show. It was our very first episode with a new platform. It turned out there were one or two microphone issues on the other side, but we've been testing all afternoon. We're all sorted and ready to go. And so we will meet that sommelier in just a moment. But to let you know what else you have to look forward to a little later on in today's episode, someone you will have seen on Dan Really Likes Wine if you're a regular viewer a couple of times over the last little while, and that is Gerard Holden, the man behind Holden Manz down in Franschhoek. They have supplied plenty of wine post-lockdown for me to sample. Been very, very generous indeed. And it is wine that we will be tasting with Gerard, trying his Cabernet Franc and also trying out some of his Chenin Blanc. So that is on its way. But we kick off with the sommelier, who I think might be a second or third cousin of mine, because she is, like myself, from Zimbabwe. I grew up there. She was born there, from just outside of Harare, and she now finds herself in Stellenbosch, where she has risen from someone who initially had a job as a waitress to now being involved with Majeka House as their head sommelier, amongst a couple of other roles. It gives me great pleasure to say hello to Brenda Maramba.
Hello, how are you?
Extremely well. Lovely to have you on, Brenda, and lovely to hear you. We were able to see you on Thursday last week.
It's quite a great pleasure to actually be here, and now you can hear me, because last week I was dumbfounded when I couldn't even hear myself. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you too, not just because we get to share some lovely wine with you, which we'll do in a moment, but we also get to tell your story again. And we have done that in the past on Dan Really Likes Wine, and very, very happily so, with great excitement. But for those people who don't know the Brenda Maramba story, just a brief recap on how you found your way into the hospitality industry and then rapidly accelerated through it to the position you find yourself in now at Majeka House.
Okay, so Brenda is a second child in a family of 4. She grew up in Harare and then went to a Catholic school for her secondary education. Then after that, went to university in India. Quite a lot of people ask, how did you end up in India? Well, when you're looking for something great, you always go extra mile. Then later on came back home. In Zimbabwe, the economic situation wasn't that good, so I had to cross over the border to come to South Africa to look for greener pastures. Worked for 2.5 years as a warehouse manager at Chill Direct, or at the moment it's called Chill Beverages. Got bored of doing that because all I could see is cans, sugars, ingredients on how to make drinks, and then truck drivers. Then I came into the industry in 2011, the hospitality industry. Met a gentleman who is my mentor. His name is Christian. The wine industry was Josephine Hottenhoft. Now she's in the States, happily married, and I'm very grateful for her because she's the one who drew me into this wine industry. My first taste of wine was Sauvignon Blanc, which looked like a juice. I hated Sauvignon Blanc from that day onwards, but later on, because of drinking great wines, now I appreciate and love Sauvignon Blanc. And then from there onwards, started having wine courses, going for wine tastings, and then my bosses Lloyd and Karine van der Merwe saw the potential in me, and then they pushed me to greater heights. They sent me to study wines, so I've been studying wine with the WSET Wine Spirit Education Academy. Now I'm doing my level 3, which is a great thing, and then from there onwards I have also a great support of winemakers and wine farms that are around Majeka House. They have helped me grow, because every now and then they are there to support me, to help me out. The likes of Anthony from Rainbow's End. I've got George Delagia. I've got Chris from Claremont. I've got quite a lot. I can't name all of them, but they are my family. They're the ones who have helped me grow to be who I am today.
And I've got no doubt they've done a huge job, but the main impetus has come for yourself, because you've worked so hard from a space of not having wine at all, drinking and hating a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, to now becoming a real wine expert and a powerhouse amongst the wine community in Stellenbosch. It's a wonderfully inspiring story, but it's also a space where you've clearly found a real passion. What is it for Brenda Maramba that makes magic for you with wine? Why does it have such a big impact on who you are?
So for the first time when I started drinking wines, I was told it's not just what's in the bottle. You have to appreciate the technique that went into the wine. You have to understand the wine itself, the flavors that you get in the wine, the time and effort the winemakers has put in that wine. So once you have those four in your head, so the minute you approach a bottle of wine, you just don't approach it as something that is alcoholic. You approach the bottle of wine to appreciate the wine, to recognize what effort that is gone into making that wine, and to see from the winemaker's point of view what exactly was he trying to do when he made that one. So those aspects, when you put them together, it actually goes and sits in a place where you'll be like, you know what, I need to actually appreciate what I see. And then from there, your love grow because you have taken someone's love for making that wine and making it your own love. And then from there onwards, everything just flows.
Well, I think we've got 2 bottles of wine that are going to speak to your passion and your enjoyment, because you've chosen these bottles very specifically. You were quite firm and shouted at me when I tried to suggest anything else. And I'm glad that you're firm, because we've got a couple of great wines. And one of them is an estate that I love going out to visit. I haven't been there in a long time, and I haven't had their wine in a little while, so it's nice to add it to what I'm drinking. And this is the Haskell Estate. You've had now the Dombeya, the Long Table, which is a fabulous place for a very, very lazy lunch. So this is their Chardonnay. As I'm pouring it, and just before I taste it, Brenda, tell me first of all why Haskell, and then why this particular wine.
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier on, Josephine Guttentoft, she introduced me into wine. So the first wine farm that I visited was Haskell. And then besides that, my young sister also works there. So I've been drinking a lot of Chardonnay, which is very beautiful. Thank you, Bianca. So the first wine farm that I visited, and I was treated with respect. I was even given, we met the winemaker back then. Sorry, I can't remember his name because it's changed. That was in 2014. So he treated me, because I didn't know much about wines, but he made me realize that there's more to wine, especially for him, his favorite wine was the Chardonnay. So when we sat down, he took his time. He had patience. He had, when like a teacher teaching a child on how to appreciate wine. And then from there onwards, I started also appreciating the grape varietal itself. So on the white wine varietals, this is my best grape varietal, the Chardonnay, because of the fruit flavors that comes through the wine, all those ripe fruits, all those beautiful flavors that come through. So for me, the Enville it has a special place in my heart. So that's why I quickly shouted at you, we need to do the Enville Chardonnay, because it has a special place in my heart.
All right, well, let's give it a go. The nose is already being as demanding as you are, and very happily so.
A bit of some peach, apricot that you pick up from there.
Little nectarine.
White asparagus, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're finding, certainly I think, Brenda, with most of our varietals, that there's a greater variety of style. Winemakers are embracing more and more that you don't have to make a Chardonnay in one way. You don't have to make a Pinotage in one way. Depending on your terroir, your climate, possibly even your personal preference, there are different approaches. And this is not as heavy or as rich or as creamy as some Chardonnay can be. This has got the more fruit feel to it, and I think it's very successful for it.
It is beautiful, because the thing is, with the Envy Chardonnay, the winemaker doesn't use any steel in it. He doesn't put a lot of wood as well. For me, I'm a sucker for wooded Chardonnays, wooded white wine, and a little bit aged white wines as well. But for me, this wine actually speaks out louder for me, because it doesn't have too much wood. That doesn't have that overwhelming wood that you find in other wines. And then the fruit flavors, it still maintains its fruit flavors as well, even though you pick up some secondary flavors from the wine, but the majority of the fruit, it's still outstanding. It's still beautiful. You can pick them up on the nose and also on the palate. And especially for the 2018, this is a very beautiful wine because when I was speaking to the winemaker a while ago, he told me this is the oldest Chardonnay that has been planted in Stellenbosch. So it is 100% Chardonnay, 100% French oak, and it has spent like 12 months in barrels, but not first. It's half of it is in first fill, and then the other half is in second and third fill. That's why it still retains its freshness, its fruit flavors, because it doesn't have overwhelming good flavors to the wine.
That's very nicely understated. You are an expert in the field of wine, but you also have to know a fair bit about food, given that your job encompasses that as well at Majeka House, which is my favorite place to stay in Stellenbosch. I love to join you there. In terms of the wine that you do have, and then the food that you pair it with, great kitchen, great menu at Majeka House. What am I eating at Majeka House to go with this Chardonnay?
So with this Chardonnay, you don't need food that will overwhelm the wine. You still need to have that balance between the food and the wine, so that when you take a bite of your food, you still taste your food. Then you take a sip of wine, you still have the wine in your mouth as well. So let's take, for instance, like a shellfish dish or a fish dish that has got some asparagus in it, that has a cream base with it, but not too much cream, so that it doesn't overwhelm the wine. The wine also doesn't have too much acidity, so you don't want to overwhelm the dish with a lot of creams, a lot of acidity. So it needs to be a balanced cream-based dish. Then a fish with a little bit of asparagus on the side, or you can do any seafood that you want to do with the wine, provided you don't put a whole lot of chilies or a whole lot of other flavors, because mostly seafood dishes, they tend to have those overwhelming chilies or a lot of peppers or something, but you need to keep the dish mild so that it balances very well with the wine itself. Or you can even try a ravioli, a mushroom ravioli would do perfectly beautiful with this wine. Or you can do just any other ravioli, a veggie ravioli that you can think of, and then it goes very well with the wine as well.
Plenty of options for you to work with there. That is the Anvil Chardonnay from Haskell. That's the first wine for today. The second wine chosen once again by Brenda, is one that you had to walk about 100 yards up the road to go and find, because the pearl of Majeka House, but right next to Waterford. So this is the Kevin Arnold Shiraz. This speaks to something else that I love about what you do in terms of the wine you have at Majeka House. You're a great champion, Brenda, of local wine, of the people in the area who support you and you support in turn. And so including Kevin Arnold, given that Waterford is so close, I guess was a pretty easy call for you.
It was a pretty easy call for me because as of late, I have been in trouble with my bosses, but at the moment, I always tell them I don't care, because I believe in local is lekker. Support, firstly, I need to support my surrounding wine farms, and hence in turn they will support me. And moreover, it's not only the surrounding wine farms that I support. I also support very small wine farms, like the likes of Rainbow's End, the likes of Matthew Van Herden. Those guys, they make beautiful wines, but unfortunately they don't have as much money as any other big wine farms to go and advertise. So for me, I've turned Majeka House into little wine heaven, where you come in, you find beautiful wines, exceptionally beautiful wines that you don't find in bottle stores, that you don't find in Checkers, that you don't find in any liquor shop. The only way that you find the farm wine is either you go to the farm or you come through me. So I've kind of put myself in the center of all this wine that I want to promote as a South African and as a Stellenbosch person, to first of all showcase that Stellenbosch itself has beautiful wines, and so does South Africa in whole. But mostly this Helderberg Valley that I have, the Blauwklippen Valley, the Helderberg Valley, the ones that are around me, that the most ones that are at the center of my wine expedition, and then everybody else comes through. Sorry, guys, that I chose to be this selfish, but this is something that I've done for myself and the ones that are around me.
No, no need to apologize at all. I think it's one of the reasons you're so popular, Brenda. You've become such a favorite amongst the winemakers of Stellenbosch and also people in the wine world. And to that end, Bubbles Highland says, "Hi, Brenda." Vimbrock, sounds great, Brenda. Annie Carlisle Kitts, thank you for sharing your heartwarming story and recommendations, Brenda. And Angelique watching says, "This wine sounds delicious." So thank you. I can agree on firsthand. The Chardonnay certainly was. I see Melu Lambert is also watching. I know she's a big fan of yours as well.
And a great friend as well.
Yeah, when she's not Skyping her bestie Jancis and talking wine. All right, so this is the Kevin Arnold Shiraz. It's the 2015 that we both have. I've drunk a lot of this because my wife adores this almost as much as she adores Kevin Arnold. She sees him as the Paul Newman of Stellenbosch and would run away with him in a heartbeat if he asked her to.
I'm very sorry for you, but she's right. This is a beautiful wine. And kudos to Kevin Arnold and the Waterford team for making such a beautiful wine. So with this 2015, it's slightly a little bit of a blend. It's 98% Shiraz and 8% of Mourvedre to add that oomph to the wine, to add more complexity, more color to the wine. And what I like about Kevin Arnold, one day I'm going to follow in his footsteps. It's a partnership with his friends. So they have every year they name their wines after a daughter or a son or anything. So this one is the Catherine Lee wine. So I know when she got married, she named the wine. She had only this one on her wedding day. So they name each vintage each year differently according to their kids, which is a beautiful thing. And I hope they have got like a huge cellar in the house with just that wine because it's a beautiful wine.
It's a fabulous, fabulous way to be able to celebrate. I might see if I can get Kevin to make some of his Shiraz and name it after my wife. That would be a perfect wedding anniversary gift.
If you play your cards right, he will definitely.
Brenda, before we let you go, your role at Majeka House puts you squarely at the heart of the tourism industry, which, like the wine industry, has had a very, very tough few months. Where does Majeka House sit now? Are you open for food? Are you open for guests? Are you getting ready to open? Or what is your status?
So Majeka House has got three different services that we offer to get clients. We have a spa, we have the rooms, and then we have the restaurant. So today we opened our doors for the spa, so it's now fully functional from 8 to 5 o'clock. You can come in for massages, you can come in for those long-deserved pedicures and manicures. And then we have the hotel itself. We have a 23-room hotel, boutique hotel. So we are going to open our doors on Friday for the hotel. So it's a beautiful heaven, a beautiful, nice place hidden away from the traffic of the Stellenbosch busy university town. So you can come in, enjoy the stay. We have got quite a few promotions that we are running online. So you can visit www.majekahouse.co.za and then you can see what we are offering on accommodation that also includes wine and everything. And then with the restaurant, we haven't quite opened the restaurant yet, but we have a bar, a lounge area that we've opened our doors to as well. So guests can also come and enjoy. So like I always believe, local is lekker. So first, let's promote our local businesses, our individual businesses, so that we can grow, because the tourism industry suffered quite a lot in this coronavirus pandemic. And then we are the people that are actually going to bring that back our economy. We're going to bring back the industry itself. And please don't forget, you can still go out and buy your wines. We're still allowed to go and buy and drink wine at home. So visit any wine farm close to you or your favorite wines. You don't need to have you don't need to have a permit to go and buy a wine. You can still go and buy your favorite wine, drink it at home, or when you visit us at a Majeka House. Though you can't drink it in the restaurant, you can still enjoy the bottle of wine in your room, and so that we can help revive the industry, the wine industry, the restaurant industry, and the accommodation industry. So we are the people that can actually bring back life into this industry.
Indeed, and particularly in a place like Stellenbosch. I think you've got some people planning already. Angelique Kubalakis saying, glad to hear that your doors are opening again. Possibly one of those people who is headed your way. Greek beauty by the looks of things. Brenda, thank you so much. It's always a delight spending some time with you, even if we are a couple of thousand kilometers apart at the moment. Nice to see things opening up. I know there are a few months to make up for, but I'm sure you will soon. Love Majeka House. Love what you do there. Love drinking wine with you and love your story. So thank you so much for sharing all of those with us here on Dan Really Likes Wine this evening.
Thank you very much, Don, and hope to see you sometime soon when you visit Stellenbosch.
It's one of my very, very first stops. Majeka House down in Stellenbosch, little luxury boutique hotel, terrific spot. And they've also got a spa. The spa is open, and it is the spa where Mike Radcliffe drops by once a week for his full body wax that he has very strictly in his weekly calendar. So that was Brenda Maramba from Majeka House talking us through some Anvil Chardonnay from Haskell, as well as the Kevin Arnold Shiraz. And from there, we head not too far down the road to the little French Huguenot enclave of Franschhoek, where we find a big smiling Englishman who's made me promise not to say on today's show that he looks like Boris Johnson's big brother. So I'll leave that out this time and let you make your own call entirely. He is a wonderful raconteur. He's got a terrific, terrific wine operation, and he's always great fun to chat to. A very good evening, Gerard Holden.
Hi, good evening, Dan. How are you?
All the better for seeing you, Mr. Holden, and seeing that big smile on your face. The smile, I'd imagine, of a man who, after a couple of months of absolute drought, is now seeing vast amounts of wine fly out of the cellar and travel all over the place.
Yeah, it's been a tough few months, but we've been very lucky to have an amazing group of supporters of Holden Manz who kept us very busy around the 1st of June. So we've still got 1 or 2 bottles to get to people, which have gone around South Africa 2 or 3 times by the sound of things. But the couriers have been overwhelmed, and certainly they've been earning their cash recently. But we've got most of the wine to most of the people, so hopefully people are getting their cellars refilled with Holden Manz, and we've had the chance to release some new vintages as well.
Well, I think my cellar is currently 26% Holden Manz, thanks to the generosity of the samples that you sent up and which have arrived. We're going to try a couple of those in just a moment. Before we do that, though, a quick word on what is happening in Franschhoek. I've chatted to a number of people from Franschhoek over the last couple of months, and much like Stellenbosch, there's been an enormous community effort in terms of bringing people together, helping out those struggling, those a little less fortunate, and spearheading that has been the hospitality industry, and in particular, some of the chefs in Franschhoek. Tell us a little bit about what the chefs have been doing to help feed people in the community, and also about an auction that I believe is on the horizon.
Sure. So the auction actually closed over the weekend, and they raised over 130,000 rand. So a number of different lots with to have dinner with different chefs. So people like Ruben Riffel, Chris Erasmus from Foliage, Darren Badenhorst from Le Coin Francais, and Margot Janse, who used to run one of the best restaurants in town at the time, I guess it was. And she actually has one of the charities which has been feeding families, feeding children in Franschhoek, and I think there've been over 4,000 meals a week. So quite a significant effort, and I think they've really helped to keep some of the less fortunate people fed and warm. And I think that's one of the beauties about Franschhoek is that there's a real community spirit, and people try and look after everybody else. And I think it's partly driven by the fact that Franschhoek at the end of the day is a very small town. It's one main street and a number of wine farms around that, but that one main street has the bulk of the restaurants that are driving this effort. And Chris, particularly Chris Erasmus from Foliage, has opened up his restaurant to be a centre for drop-offs, lots of big generous donations from business people within the village and from families in the village, but also from some of the businesses that work with Franschhoek restaurants have been bringing significant amounts of vegetables and proteins, which have been transformed into food for the more needy people around. So it's been a massive effort, and I think amazing to see what somewhere like Franschhoek can do when it's a tough time like this.
I love hearing stories like this because they are so much needed at the moment, the times we're going through. But I particularly love this because Franschhoek, when I moved down to Cape Town from Zimbabwe to go to university, 22 years ago, Franschhoek was the first place other than Cape Town I visited, and I've been going back there as often as I can. So nice to hear some good news coming out of Franschhoek. Nice too to drink some good wine coming out of Franschhoek. It's no surprise to find said wine, and particularly given that it comes from Holden Manz. And we've got 2 wines to try with you. The first of these is the chenin. We've shared quite a bit of wine together, particularly your rosé and then the cabernet franc. We'll drink that shortly, but between the cab franc and the Big G, I'm mildly addicted. Talk to us about the chenin blanc, though. When we think of Franschhoek, we often think of the reds in particular, of the bubbles. Chenin's maybe not the first wine we think about when it comes to Franschhoek, but it's clearly one. This is your reserve. Clearly one you feel you're doing something quite special with. Talk to us about this particular chenin and what we can expect from the 2019 reserve.
So this is actually the first time that we've made a chenin blanc reserve. We've got a number of other reserves. We've got a Chardonnay reserve, and then we've got 3 red reserves. And we started making chenin blanc in 2017. For us, our property is perfect for red grapes, but it's not fantastic for white grapes. And as you say, Franschhoek's not particularly renowned for its chenin blanc production. So we actually looked outside of the valley for our fruit for this wine, and it's taken a little bit of time, but over time, through the good work of Thierry Haber, our cellar master, and his relations with Rosa Kruger, particularly, we've found some amazing vines, and these are bush vines that contribute the fruit for this wine. They're all over 35 years old, so this is part of the Old Vine project, and we're very happy to have that accreditation on this wine. 80% of the fruit came from the Simmonsburg Paarl area, and the balance came from the Purderberg. So it's 2 slightly different areas. We wanted 2 different areas to give some complexity to the wine as a sort of base generation from the fruit. It's a very classical rendering of Chenin Blanc from that perspective. It's a whole bunch press, so we get the berries in early in the morning, press them using the champagne press cycle, so very gentle press. And by having a whole bunch press, we allow the juice lots of little avenues to go through, so that we're really trying to keep it as soft and elegant as possible. And then we ferment just under 30% of this wine in barrels, a mixture of new barrels and second time around barrels. And the balance is fermented in stainless steel tanks. And we only use wild yeast for this wine. So we don't add any commercial yeast at all. We want to let nature take its course and give us its rendering of the flavors for this wine. And then we give it 12 months on the lees. So 12 months in barrel, 12 months in tank, and we keep it stirred the whole time. And the idea is to produce a Chenin Blanc which will have a bit of power to it, a bit of depth to it, and a wine which will mature over the next 5 to 7 years as it grows. So it's still very much in short trousers at the moment, this wine, but it's got lots of potential for the future.
I think it's definitely a Gerard Holden in the making, because there's a lovely softness to it, but you can sense there's a bit of strength and presence behind all of that. But it's beautifully soft on the palate. I can tell you there's I don't know if it's just the internet or if it's a general ability that she has, but the moment anybody at any point of time on earth mentions Chenin Blanc, Ina Smith suddenly magically appears, as she has done on my timeline, and says, please say hi to Gerard, #drink Chenin. We're not that far gone from Chenin Day. So there we go. We're supporting you as we do so happily. It's for me, having a Chenin Blanc, it's not essential. It's not essential to have any wine in any particular place, but I think we're seeing more and more Chenin Blanc muscling its way to the front of the queue in terms of the wine that South Africa is showcasing around the world. And as an estate that gets so many international visitors, that probably makes it quite important for you to look at having this as part of your lineup.
Yes, that was really the reason we started making Chenin Blanc in the first place back in 2017. I, as you know, do quite a lot of the trade shows around the world, and I was getting a little bit irritated by people coming up to us on a regular basis and saying, no, I don't want to taste anything else, I just want a Chenin Blanc. And so after that had happened to me 3 or 4 times, I said, right, okay, we're going to make a Chenin Blanc, and it's become a real core of the portfolio. We've got a very good relationship with some importers in the United States, and they've actually just ordered 30% of our production for the year to go over there in the next few weeks for their Thanksgiving season. So that's Chenin Blanc and turkey around Thanksgiving, I think, has become a little bit of a tradition for some people in the States.
Oh, great to hear. More good news stories. Right, this is your Chenin. I really like it. I do, and I was looking forward to trying it. But I've really just been killing time to get to the star attraction because, as you know, Dan and Cabernet Franc are a wonderful, wonderful pairing. So let's get into this and pour it out. So this is the 2017 Cab Franc Reserve. There we go. And as much as what I feel I've just said about Chenin Blanc holds true, there's not a dissimilar story, I reckon, at the moment, Gerard, with the Cabernet Franc that we're making at the higher end in South Africa, where it's breaking free from the shackles of quiet background position in the blend and more than holding its own as I think one of the best red wine varietals we're making in South Africa at the moment.
Certainly, I mean, we made our first Cabernet Franc Reserve in 2012, and at that time there were probably no more than a dozen or so decent Cabernet Francs around, and one of my first exposures to Cabernet Franc was the Rainbow's End Cabernet Franc, probably when we first moved to South Africa, 2006, and that gave us a lot of inspiration around with what those guys were doing, and really sort of helped drive us with developing Cabernet Franc. We're really lucky here at Holden Manz. We've got one spot on the farm which is right at the top of the farm, and it's on a sort of decomposed granitic intrusion, and Cabernet Franc loves granite, and it's the only part of the farm where that comes through. And so what that does is it allows Cabernet Franc to grow, but it's not anywhere near as strong a grower as it would be if it was on some of the more fertile soils on the farm. And Cabernet Franc's got a big propensity to overcrop, so we try and keep it really tight and teary. Our cellar master tends to do most of the pruning himself on the Cabernet Franc block because it gets real special treatment, and it's certainly the star of the show when it comes to the Holden Manz wines.
Right, well, let me throw back the first of several large sips for this evening. And there is something, it's that little green age mixed with the dark fruit. There's just such a wonderfully distinctive element to Cabernet Franc. Even in a blend, you tend to pick it up so early. And just the components all coming together. It's almost like a hidden secret. I think more and more people are starting to discover just how wondrous a great Cabernet Franc, and for me especially a great South African Cabernet Franc, really is.
I think the beauty with Cabernet Franc as well is that you can get such a wide spectrum of products. So you can go from sort of Lucas van Lockenberg's quite austere Loire-styled wine, which takes a little bit of time to come out of itself, but when it does, it's absolutely beautiful, through some of the sort of mid-range, through to probably ours would be one of the sort of bigger expressions of Cabernet Franc, but that's very typical of our terroir here. So it does give the consumer the ability to choose right across that spectrum and to get some really different, different expressions. You can have quite a light Cabernet Franc, which is a very easy drinking wine, still with the raspberry flavors there, still with some sort of green tobacco flavors there. And then as you come through to this guy, it's like black fruit, dark fruit coming through, cassis, a bit of fame-boss flavors coming out, and spiciness, which is partly down to the use of the barrels that we use, but also this is fermented actually in the barrels. We put the berries inside the barrel, we take the tops of the barrels off and ferment it wild inside the barrels, and it's a job for the cellar interns that we have every year. They have to push these barrels up and down the cellar and make sure they don't get trapped underneath one.
I think it's work I'd happily do if it was done for the reward of Cabernet Franc. I do love this, and it's a fantastic way to wrap up Monday's tasting. Before I let you go, though, Gerard, we chatted earlier to Brenda at Majeka House, asking her about where Majeka House is as an operation. They're more than just a hotel. They've got the restaurant, they've got the spa. You've got a great operation as well. There's the restaurant, you've got your country house. Where do you sit in terms of what you can and can't do and what people can come and enjoy at the estate?
So we're strictly from a sort of current regulation perspective, we're not allowed to have any leisure guests in the country house, but we are allowed to have business travel guests, and we've got a couple of business travel guests coming through next week, and hopefully we'll start to see some intra-provincial travel happen in the near future. We've had quite a few people come out to the tasting room, which is open. The tasting room's open Monday through Thursday from 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening. We can't do tastings yet, unfortunately, which is a little bit crazy, but we can sell wine, and quite a few people have come out for the day and got a picnic from Woolworths and sat outside and enjoyed the scenery. And we're always welcome to show people around the cellar and have a bit of a tour and a chat with them. So that's sort of happening. It's going to be a while, I think, before we get tourists from Gauteng and from other parts of South Africa coming to us, and then it's going to be even longer, unfortunately, before we get international guests. And we're on the Franschhoek wine tram circuit. We're one of the stops there, and it's a big generator of new visitors for us every year. We get about 22,000, 23,000 visitors a year at Holden Manz, of which probably 15,000 of those come through the Franschhoek wine tram. So until that restarts and until the overseas guests restart, we're really dependent on widening our circle of friends. And I do a newsletter every Friday with a special offer, which goes out to about 6,000 people. And that's been generating some sales, which has been good fun. But it's going to be a few months before we get back to full activities, unfortunately.
It's not a unique situation, unfortunately, and not just the hospitality industry. South Africa as a whole, many parts of the world still fighting their way back, but at least the wine sales have recommenced. And when they're led by wines like this, you're on a steady footing to make a comeback. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you the words of Annie Carlisle-Kitts, who seems a little undecided here. Gerard, her response: the very, very, very best Cabernet Franc in South Africa. So you've definitely got more than just me amongst your Holden Manz Cabernet Franc fans. Gerard, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. Really appreciate getting to share some of your wine with you. And also thank you. I know you don't take any personal credit for you, but I know that you're a big part of everything that happens in Franschhoek and supporting the community in tough times. So thank you for that. And thank you to the chefs and your fellow hospitality titans in the Valley for doing so much to not just help out, but also inspire the rest of us with some good news stories.
Thanks, Dan. Lovely to chat to you. See you again soon.
So there we go. Gerard Holden, the unofficial mayor of Franschhoek, who does a terrific job flying the flag for the Valley and also making, together with Thierry, his French winemaker, some splendid, splendid wine. Drinking here their Chenin Blanc, grapes from outside of Franschhoek, but coming in through the Holden Manz name. And then that Cabernet Franc, the Reserve 2017. Definitely got a long way to go in terms of how much time you can keep it in the cellar for, but right now it is already drinking quite superbly. And I've got a suspicion this particular bottle is not going to last much longer. In terms of the rest of the week, we've got a really special edition coming out tomorrow of Dan Really Likes Wine. Derek Kilpin from Great Domains. We look at some international wine and also try out a James Bond gadget, which might change the way you approach wine and when you're able to open, especially some of those more expensive or older bottles. And we'll be back again with more live tasting on Thursday. And also, when you have a moment, don't forget to jump online to Pick and Pay, have a look at the wine selection, or head into your local store. And remember, if you're a member of the Pick and Pay Wine Club, it is 3 times the Smart Shopper points, and you also get a great selection of prices on wines, plus the chance at free delivery at 6 bottles or more. So lots to look forward to there, lots to look forward to through the course of the week. Huge thank you to Brenda Maramba, head sommelier and running the restaurant as well down at Majeka House, which is just starting to reopen. And also a big thank you to Gerard Holden, who is always wonderful to have on the show, talking us through a couple of his new releases. Keep drinking South African wine, keep supporting South African wine. The industry needs all the help it can get. So when you're next down at Pick and Pay, find something different, find something new, add it to your shopping list, and make sure that South African wine is getting your support. Thank you for watching the show wherever you are. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you again tomorrow for our pre-recorded weekly episode, and then back again, more live tasting at 5 o'clock on Thursday. Cheers.